And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to A Bookish Moment. I'm Sarah Burr.
And I'm J.C. Kenney. Happy Baby Friday, folks. We got the holiday coming up on Saturday. And it's perfect timing because it's still the weather's kind of cold, and we've got an author here who is writes some stories that are going to make you want to get under the covers and snuggle up to your favorite person to keep you out of harm's way. So, Sarah, I think rather than bookish, let's get a little creepish today, shall we?
Ooh, yes, I like that. And I was going to add that it's bone chilling
Oh, there we go.
for
Yeah.
our entertainment today, folks. We are joined by the like. Oh my goodness, a master of horror, J.H. Markert, who
Whoop,
is
whoop.
the author of many, many stories that are going to keep you up at night. We are very excited, though, to announce that he has a brand new book coming out in March, which is called Dig. The cover is absolutely like it is so arresting to look at. I don't know, James, if you have a cover image that you're able to. Oh, there it is.
There we
So, folks,
go.
we've got a skull and there are bees flying around, which may have something to do with the reason why I'm drinking some tea with honey in it today. But we will get into that a little later. To get things started off, James, welcome to the show. We're very, very happy to have you here. By way of introduction to our audience members, can you kind of give us a little bit of a walkthrough of your background? What brought you into writing these gothic horror novels? What enticed you to write fiction? I know that you've done screenwriting in the past as well. Tell us a little bit about your creative journey.
It's been a long, wild one. I up until my junior year of high school, I hated to even read. I wouldn't even like to crack a book. And then my English teacher that year, we read Catcher in the Rye, and then after that said we're reading Stephen King the rest of the year. And that just blew my mind. And not only that we were doing that, but reading Stephen King was just opening a whole new door of what fiction could be. And I just fell in love with reading at that point. And then went on to Dean Koontz and Grisham and Clancy and Peter Straub. And just from there, I just decided early 20s that I'm gonna start writing. I think I've had some ideas in me, so that's what I did. Um, and because of that, my first three books were all horror thriller in over a span of 10 years, and was not able to find an agent or sell any of them. Um, and then have you heard of Waverly Hills Tuberculosis Sanitarium? It's known as
I
one of the most haunted
I've heard
places in
of
the
it.
world.
Oh, wow.
But it's right in my backyard, basically where I grew up. Um, and I went there for my fourth book that I was gonna write, and I was convinced I was gonna write something very Stephen Kingy, very scary. But when I got there and I took a tour of the abandoned sanitarium and the architecture, and it was beautiful. And I got to thinking, I was up on the fourth floor solarium porch overlooking the woods and thinking, what if this place is haunted? What's their story? So then I thought the sound of a violin and a piano, and I thought of the idea of a doctor there curing the TB patients with music, and music is medicine. Um, so I went home and wrote the movie first, and then I wrote the book, what would become A White Wind Blue, my first historical. And because of that, we sold it. I was writing historicals for the next 10 years. And after six of those, I didn't have any more books on contract. And it was I was ready to pivot in a new direction and try writing something scary again. So I just decided to write the Nightmare Man, which came out in 2023 January. And ever since then, it's been full throttle, scarier stuff under JH Markert instead of James.
Oh, wow. That's
I
a
do have my first historical in 6, 7 years coming out in December, though.
Oh, well, cool. Congrats in advance for that too.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. And so, what, like, and that's one thing that is beautiful about writing is that you have the opportunity to explore all of these different facets of what intrigues you and what like sparks the imagination. So if you can maybe set us up a little bit for the the where we come to Crow Island in Dig. Crow Island is a fictional island that is kind of off the coast of Savannah, Georgia, and this is an island that where it's just like the dirt itself is a character, and we have this. It is there's so much generational trauma that is attached to these families, not only because of this horrible crime that has been committed there, where I think Jericho is 10 when he
Jericho died.
Yes, Jericho died, who takes an axe to a lot of members of the community, and it just it just goes from there, and you like pull your audience in. You've created the aftermath of we have Jericho's brother, who is all grown up, trying to grapple with is there this demon inside of him too that he has to worry about? And of course that gets me thinking about JC had mentioned earlier that I'm a huge true crime buff, and we don't often hear from the side of the family of the offender, of the folks who have committed the crime. So I'm wondering where you had Nate as one of the voices that you chose to bring forward. We also have Amy, who she is a twin of one of the victims of Jericho's. Can you tell like a little bit about maybe like what was the research, or just like how did you get into the mind of somebody who is in that specific headspace? Because I can imagine that for folks who have really experienced that it's not something that they are maybe willing to talk about all that much. So how did you bring that to life?
Well, I kind of had to ease into it. For me, the hardest part of a novel isn't necessarily the writing of it. It's the figuring out at the beginning what characters are going to take the wheel. What point of views do I want to be in when I'm writing this? And so there's something about the trauma, like you mentioned, the generational trauma of Dig, and the what in the world was wrong with this 10-year-old boy to make him do this. That Nate was the first character that I said I want to go with this from the point of view of guilt over him being the brother of the person who did it, and the worry of is there anything wrong with him too, or why did this happen, and how did this happen, and how can I make things right? And but the book just starting with his father, his last words before he dies at the beginning of the book, telling his remaining son, dig. And Nathan comes back to the island and finds that everybody on the island is digging. Not necessarily only digging into the ground, but digging into people's business and past. So I tried to make the island itself seem like a character, and just the ghost of the past, and just a very cerebral type. I wanted the reader to think and feel the dread. That was the goal, and hopefully it'll come out on the page.
There's definitely a lot of dread
Yeah.
that we get to experience.
Well, good.
Kind of along that line, you touched on it very briefly, but one of the things that I think that horror and thriller too, but especially horror, is a wonderful genre to take a look at issues and put them forth in such a way that doesn't necessarily beat you over the head with it, beat the reader over the head, through metaphor and some of those kind of things. So could you talk about when you're doing your writing, whether it's Dig or one of your other novels, do you set out with a theme that you are hoping the readers to get, or is it more of, I've just got this crazy story that's going to take folks on a ride, and if something happens theme wise, that's great. How does that work for you?
It's a little bit of both. Whatever it is, it happens organically, I think. But with Dig, I got to say, I went in from page one wanting to have the book just with dripping with dread and maybe a little bit of paranoia. Um, the book I'm working on now, it's I have a theme running through my head of obsession, um, obsessed on a thing like Pandora's box. Don't open the box. What happens if open? But I need to see what's in um, that type of thing. But I have other books that um, they always end up having a theme, but it's not always intentional. Um, and I find that happens more with the historicals than not, because I tend to do more book clubs with the historicals because a lot of times they generate the themes I have in those generate more questions for discussion. Um, and a lot of times I'll get in a book club when I'm visiting and doing Q&A, somebody will say, well, I love the theme you had running through this. And I stop and think, oh, yeah, I, I didn't really mean to do that, but I guess it is there. So that probably happens more than not.
I love when our readers are able to kind of eloquently put together what we are trying to convey, even if we didn't really realize that that's what we were working
Yes.
on.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Subconscious.
yes. And speaking of readers, I want to say hello to our folks that are joining us this afternoon. We have Farmhouse Reader in the chat saying good afternoon. We have Susan saying hello all. And we have Regina saying good afternoon, everyone. Folks, if you have questions for us during the broadcast, feel free to plug them in. One thing about Dig that really caught my attention, James, was the supernatural and kind of the different types of rituals and kind of southern lore and myths that you pull out. Any chance that you can share a little bit about what a boo hag is? Because
Oh,
that
wow. Um, that, that that's one of those things that the boo hag wasn't in my mind when I started writing Dig.
mhm.
That's one of the things that came out of research and just going through, barrier island folklore and Gula Geechee folklore, um, and I came across boo hag, and it's terrifying. It's kind of a folklorish creature that would wear your skin during the day, and at night they'll climb atop your body and suck all your energy out.
Eek.
uh, but Dig has a boo hag problem amongst other problems. But it has a lot to do with the swamp in the middle of the island and the honey house, um, and the history of the island. But once I decided to throw a boo hag in there, then I had to really start over and put a lot of them in there. Not a lot, but they at the very beginning they weren't that big of a part of the story, and they ended up being a much bigger part.
So that brings up a question in my mind. You're talking about uh, east the island, the Barrier Island area, Savannah. The Buhag being a cryptid associated with that area.
Hmm.
For your stories, do you start with location and then like okay, and then build a story, or do you come up with an idea and try to figure out okay, where is this going to fit best, as opposed to so like for one of your other books that we're going to talk about, Spider to the Fly, that's based in here in the Midwest.
Yeah,
And so obviously like the Boo Hag's not going to work on that one. So do you kind of start with your idea first or your location, or how does that creative process get going when you're in that early stage?
a little bit of both. But even with like Spider, it takes place mostly, even though it's at the I-64, that area between Louisville and Lexington. Most of the book takes place in the town I made up called Ransom, um, which is also mentioned in a couple other books. But in Crow Island, I wanted it to be in an island. Um, but here's a trick. I don't know if it's cheating or not, but one, I like to make up my own towns. Therefore, I like to make up my own island, and I do it for a couple reasons. One, well, several. One, because I enjoy it. I have fun with that. Two, now that I'm on 2 books a year, it it kind of avoids having to do the research of that city, um, and it allows me to write it faster, if
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that so usually, like, the book I'm going to write after the one I'm writing is going to be a book that takes place on a beach. I don't yet know what coastline or where that's going to be yet. And I may make up the town that one's on too. But I know general location of that. I want it to be East Coast, Southern, something along those lines. But usually I'll think of a area, and then if I haven't already made up a town like Ransom or Twisted Tree from my other books, I'll make
Ooh, those are good.
another one up.
Those are really good names of towns. Like that, there's something
Yeah.
about, and I definitely I feel like both JC and I hear you on making up your own town is the way to
Oh
go
yeah.
because you can play by your own rules at that point,
Hmm.
and you don't have necessarily eagle-eyed readers who are from that area saying, well,
Right.
this isn't on this street corner and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So it does not only does it make the writing process or the research process easier, but it allows you to make things work as you need them. We have a comment from Regina saying, "As a Southern girl whose grandfather is from South Carolina, I know what a boot hag is." Her grandfather used to tell stories, which I
Oh
can
wow.
imagine that maybe that was really scary, Regina. As,
Yeah.
but wow, what a like oh my gosh, stories like that are just so hypnotizing and they capture the mind. And there's something that like has carried them forward for so many years. I'm curious in all of your research that you've done and the different locations and folklore that you've experienced, James. Do you have a cryptid or something along those lines that's like your favorite? Not necessarily maybe your favorite story to tell, but your favorite
Hmm.
story that you've experienced or favorite folklore that you've come across that you're like, wow, like that is chilling or that
Um,
is very haunting.
I had several in the Nightmare Man, and Mr. Lullaby. Those 2 books are linked a little bit, and I will say there is a link from Dig to the Nightmare Man and Mr. Lullaby. Um, but I would say that it's the Boo Hags. I mean, just the idea of them, and when I was, we're doing a little bit of research on it and putting them into the story.
Hmm.
Those I think are the creepiest, the ones that I've written about so far.
And
You know,
and do,
that's one of the things I've kind of, having spent my entire life in the state of Indiana, we don't have any cool cryptids. We don't have any uncool cryptids. I mean, there are no boo hags, no Mothman, no Jersey
Right.
Devil, no Sasquatch. It's like it's boring here. But anyway, just had to get that off my chest. So, James, one of the things that I do want to ask, kind of pivoting a little bit to Spider to the Fly. Now, that's kind of more of a thriller than Dig being supernatural,
Yes.
scare your pants off horror. And you also write historical novels.
Uh-huh.
Um, can you talk a little bit about what, if any, type of brain shift you need to do when you're talking? Because those are, obviously 3 different types of stories you're writing. So, what do you do to, if anything, to orient yourself to, okay, now I got my horror that I'm going to write?
Um, well, the main brain shift I've had to deal with the last 3 years is just between horror or thriller suspense. Um, like Sleep Tight, Spider to the Fly, and then my book coming out in September, which is called The Chain House. Those are all dark thriller suspense, with no supernatural. Um, and then you have Dig and Mr. Lullaby and Nightmare Man are all horror. So there's not a huge pivot there. It's just a matter of more based in reality. And honestly, for me, I'll write the non supernatural ones faster. Um, just because the more horror, the more supernatural you get, throws that element in of explaining it. Not that it
Okay.
all, not that it all needs to be explained, but it does need to make some sort of sense. If this supernatural thing's happening, why or how. So there's none of that in it. And honestly, I haven't had to pivot too much from historical to the other ones, other than the book I'd just written, um, or that's the Ransom Burning is coming out in December, which takes place in Ransom, but back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
but that one didn't seem as much like a pivot because I wrote the movie for that during COVID, and then used that as an outline to write the book. So it didn't seem that much of a pivot because I'd already had a lot of the research done.
Mhm.
Um, but going forward, I'm gonna, try to do a balancing act of with scarier stuff with the historical, and I haven't yet decided how I'm going to navigate that because that will be tougher. I don't think I'll be able to write some historical in the morning and then switch to, I don't know. I have to cross that bridge when I come to it.
It definitely is a challenge to be juggling kind of those two different selves that you have to bring out when writing different genres. And I wonder, I have dabbled at writing a like psychological suspense before.
Hmm.
Usually, I am writing amateur sleuth mysteries, which are very light, fun, and joyful, as
Right.
joyful as murder can be. Um,
Yeah.
and one thing that I found as I was writing something different is that my I was like in such a bad mood while I was writing because my characters were like very snarky and dark, and it just felt like that so much of what was happening on the page was seeping into just like my experience itself. So I'm curious, like, how do you keep with these like very scary dread based stories that you have? How do you like keep yourself like upbeat and engaged, or is it something that actually helps fuel you as you're working on the project?
Um, hmm. The I write fast, and I'll say that. Well, I've never slept well, and I don't sleep very well when I'm in the heart of writing a book,
Hmm.
especially one of the scarier books. Um, so that helps propel me to write it faster and get it done, get the first draft out of my head. And once that happens, I can live a little more freely without um, that lingering. Because some of this darker stuff, I, I don't want to, but I take it with me when I can't sleep. I can't not think of it,
Hmm.
which doesn't happen as much with the historical. Um, but I generally also don't write at night. So I say all the time that I get dumber as the day goes on. So I like to write in the morning and then stop around one or two because my sentences they get worse as the day goes on. Um, so that as well. Um, but also I found, and I enjoyed writing the horror. I really do. It's fun. And I try to bring as much humanity into my
Hmm.
characters and also with a little bit of comedy with them at certain times and um, feeling and emotion and that type of thing. Um, but with going, 5, 6 years not writing historical, which in my historicals, I usually tend to, I mean, there's more heart in my historicals, much more. Um, and I always felt that if you're going to judge an author by what they write, those are more of me as opposed to my horror thrillers or not. uh, you're not going to find me comparing myself to any of the characters in my horror novels. Um, so it was a kind of a breath of fresh air. I want to get back to writing some historicals just because I think those feel more like me, if that
Nice.
makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
It totally makes sense. We had an author on just recently, and he talked about he found that writing the cozy mystery reflected his personality more. And
Hmm.
so it makes him happy. And so much of that, I think, is we learn about ourselves. And speaking of learning, we have a lot of folks who not only love to meet new writers, they really appreciate you sharing your stories and things like that. As far as somebody who's starting out, writing, do you have any little things that you've picked up over the years that, oh man, I wish I'd have known then what I know now, kind of thing that you'd like to share?
Hmm. Um, Especially early on, if you write a novel and you think it's ready, it's probably not. And I would recommend sitting it down for a little while and starting a new one, and then going back and reworking the first one until you can't rework it anymore. Um, but my biggest advice for writers is always to just write and don't worry about if it's good or if it's the best novel ever or whatever, because you can only fix something in my mind if it exists, if it's there.
Mm.
You can't make a book better if it's not finished. So that's one thing I do is I write the first draft to fruition. That's why I don't have writer's block. I'm okay with writing crap. So I'll just write it to the ending,
Mhm.
and then I'll go back and fix stuff because I can't fix and fully conceptualize something that's not there.
That I love that piece of advice. And I feel like that's something
Yeah.
that I learned the hard way because I was a person that I would write and then I would think of, oh, like I need to change this and I would go back. And
Yes.
yet I could never move forward enough to like understand what I really needed to fix as a whole. So now it's like I will write my first draft. The killer will be like three different people at some point during the manuscript, but it's like, you know what, I'll fix that, I'll wrap it all up in the end, it'll be fine, we'll get there. But yes, finishing and finishing it and having it on the page is very, very important. James, I wish we had more time left because I would love to talk more about taking a idea from screenwriting to book, because you've mentioned a couple of times that a few of your novels started out
Hmm.
as screen plays. I guess really quickly, what when you sit down to write a screenplay, how is the planning process different than when you sit down to write a novel that you haven't written a screenplay for?
Um, well, it's not as fun. I enjoy writing novels way more, and that's what my bread and butter is. Um, I don't feel like I have as much freedom writing a screenplay, um, just because there's more rules and there's more structure. And this, the first act, second act, third act. Where in a novel, I just write. Um, but I did write the screenplay for two of my books first, and those are the only two times I've ever done anything close to an outline because I'm a definite pantser. But those two books that I did it for is my very first book, and then this other one, Ransom Burning, that I thought were so cinematic that I would write the movie first, and that's just how I ended up doing it. Now I've yet to take any of my books and make them into screenplays, um, and I think a lot of that comes down to I'm at the stage now where I can't waste any time writing something if I'm not getting paid for it
Mm-hmm.
or making money for it. Because since I'm writing full time now, um, but I do love doing both. But I love the novels much more.
Wonderful.
Well, I tell you what, James, this has been just, I can't put fabulous and fantastic together, so it has been fabulously
Fantabulous.
fantastic.
Fantabulous.
Fantabulous. There we
Fantabulous.
go. Yeah, we can't thank you enough, for coming and hanging with Sarah and I today.
Oh,
For
I'm
folks who want,
happy to.
good, good. For folks who want to keep in touch with you, can you maybe tell us, like, do you have a newsletter, website? Where can folks kind of keep track of what you're up to?
Um, as far as social media, I'm mostly on Instagram, um, which is just James Markert 74. Um, the year I was born, 1974. Let's see, website, www.jamesmarkert.com. And it's woefully behind. I think the last book on there is Sleep Tight. So I need Spider to Fly. I need to update it. But the contact info is on there. But those are the main two.
Okay.
Excellent.
I felt like I was spread out too far across too many social media, so I'm trying to just focus on one, Instagram.
Okay.
That's a good plan.
Yeah.
Because there's too much going on, and I apologize, guys. The sun is like coming right. I forgot to close the blinds today, so the sun's coming right in. So I'm awash in a glow. Really quickly, James, we do have a question from one of our viewers. This is from DHBA, asking if the writing is the full-time job. Is it still fun?
Yes.
Good.
I love it. Full-time fun. Because I was a tennis pro for 26 years. And that entire time I was wanting to, I was like, I can't wait till I can just write books. And that's what I'm doing. And I love it. But that being said, if it wasn't for my wife being the breadwinner for much of the 26 years of marriage, would have probably lived in a van. But I love it. I basically wake up every morning and just start making stuff up.
That's awesome.
That is great.
Awesome.
Took me a while to get here, but
well, we're very glad that you did, and
yes.
Just like, oh gosh, so many great stories, and so many. I love to listen to scary stories to fall asleep at night. I don't know why that is a thing that works for me, but these like fit right in so nicely. For real quickly, before we sign off, any recommendations that you can share with our audience members about books that you've read recently that were entertaining for you? Any movie, TV show that's been really fun? We'd love to hear it.
Let's see. The book I'm reading right now, I just started it. Seed by Anya Alborn, or is that how you say her name? Loving that. I also read her book Brother. My book of 2025, my favorite book was Wally Lamb. What was his? The River is Waiting.
Okay.
That was great. As far as shows, I started Slow Horses.
Oh.
That's the one I've been watching recently, and I'm getting ready to start season 3.
Nice.
And I got to meet that author at BoucherCon in Nashville a couple of years ago. But that's what I'm doing there. I like to start every morning off. I do my coffee, and then I'll watch 30 minutes of a show just to get my brain going, and then I'll go start writing. Because I can watch a TV show on my iPad like I would a book, and watch 20 minutes here, 10 minutes here, and I'll get through an episode of a show every day. Just treat it like with bookmarks.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jim, anything new since we last spoke?
Not that I can think of, though I will say I'm getting close to finishing season 5 of Only Murders in the Building, so it's always fun to hang out with the Arconia loonies. So that's what I've got. Sarah, how about you?
So last time I had talked about some alien abduction movie that we watched. Now I'm listening to a podcast that's called High Strange, which is about an he's a crime reporter that is actually investigating all of these like abduction stories as if they are crimes. And there's some that are like very, very like it's got to be true. I don't know. It's very interesting. It's very well done. And there's so many videos on YouTube that I have to go watch because they're always like referring to like, oh, like this video that was posted in this video. So I gotta go do a little bit more research offline on it, but it's very entertaining. So, I hope that this entertained our wonderful audience members. James, this was a delight. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us this afternoon and getting bookish with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime, anytime, and with all the projects that you have in the future, definitely let us know when we can look forward to another book. I'm more than happy to have you back on. For our viewers, just to let you guys know, for next week's episode that is on Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. We are trying a different streaming service or streaming platform. So if there are technical issues, bear with us. I'm trying to work things out on the back end, but just wanted to give you guys a heads up that we're trying something new to see how well it does, and hopefully we don't crash and burn. But just a little bit heads up when our guest is going to be Shelley Marsh, and we're going to be having some fun with her and her new book that is out in the world. So again, wishing you all a wonderful Valentine's Day. Hopefully you've got either a book that you can cuddle up with or something fun going on, and a happy, it's a President's Day, so hopefully folks have a 3-day weekend to look forward to as well. But as always, thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate it. And until next time, stay bookish, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.